Have you ever wondered why you ended up marrying or being drawn to a certain person, even when logic, compatibility, or even love itself seemed absent? Why do some relationships feel mysteriously faded, heavy with meaning or pain? Why do we fall for people who challenge us, mirror our wounds, or awaken emotions we thought we had buried? Could it be that marriage is not a matter of choice, but of karma? And if so, what does your soul remember that your mind has forgotten? Welcome to Stillness Unfolded, where we journey beyond surface experiences to uncover the spiritual truths hidden beneath everyday life. In today's video, we're exploring the karma of marriage, a deep dive into why we marry who we marry, what lessons lie beneath our most intimate connections, and how relationships can either trap us in cycles or liberate us into awakening. This is not just a philosophical talk, it's a mirror, one that may reflect your own relationships, past or present, in a way you've never seen before. So I invite you to stay until the very end. This video is rich with insights drawn from Buddhist teachings, soul psychology, and the subtle workings of karmic bonds. If this resonates with you, please give it a like, consider subscribing, and let me know your reflections in the comments. Your support allows this space to grow and bring more mindful content to those seeking depth and clarity in their lives. Let's walk this path together, into memory, into meaning, and perhaps into freedom. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Choice. We believe we choose our partners, that we fall in love, weigh compatibility, and commit by reason. But beneath the conscious decisions lies a realm rarely acknowledged, the karmic continuum. According to Buddhist philosophy, many connections are not new, they are renewals. Sometimes the heart doesn't fall in love, it remembers. A woman once shared how she felt a magnetic pull toward a man she had little in common with. He wasn't kind. He wasn't stable, yet she couldn't walk away. "It's like I know him," she whispered. That feeling of deep knowing, of faded recognition, is often not present life logic, but soul-level resonance. In the hidden architecture of karma, choices are not born at the altar of logic. They are shaped in silence, in the invisible spaces where cause and effect ripple across lifetimes. A meeting in this life may be the echo of a promise made long before we could speak. Karma is not romantic. It is revealing. It doesn't unite people for comfort, but for clarity. And clarity is often uncomfortable. Sometimes we are drawn not to the one who heals us, but to the one who exposes what still needs healing. In that sense, marriage isn't always about companionship. It's about confrontation with the parts of yourself you've avoided, the fear of abandonment, the hunger for validation, the echoes of your parents' love or lack thereof. From the outside, a couple may look mismatched, but karma doesn't match appearances, it matches vibrations. A wound meets its trigger, a lesson meets its teacher, a soul meets its mirror. So when you ask, why him? Or why her? Look deeper. You may find that the answer lies not in the present moment, but in a contract your soul signed long ago. Chapter 2. The Mirror of the Soul. Marriage is one of the most powerful spiritual mirrors we will ever face. Not because it flatters, but because it reflects. And what it reflects is not always what we want to see. We don't marry perfection. We marry familiarity. Often, what feels like love is simply recognition, the reflection of something unresolved within us. The partner becomes a magnifying glass for every buried insecurity, every silent belief we carry about our worth. A man once said, "She always makes me feel like I'm not good enough." His teacher replied, "No one can make you feel that, unless you already believed it." In that moment, the truth landed. His wife had not created his doubt, she had revealed it. This is how karmic connection works. It doesn't offer us what we want, it reveals what we are. Your partner is not merely a companion. They are the sacred mirror you didn't know you needed. Sometimes that mirror is kind and affirming. Sometimes it is sharp, like a blade cutting through illusion. From the Buddhist lens, the world is a projection of the mind. What you see in others is what lives, often unconsciously, in yourself. Your partner is not hurting you. They are showing you the parts of you that are still asking to be healed. This is why marriage can feel so volatile. Because we are not just facing a person, we are facing the stories, fears, and attachments we carry into the relationship. And unless those are examined, they will be projected onto the one standing closest. The mirror doesn't lie, it simply reflects. To reject the reflection is to reject the opportunity to grow. To embrace it is to begin the real work of love, not outward, but inward. Chapter 3. Attraction as recognition, not romance. What we often call chemistry may not be love at all. It may be recognition of a wound, of a pattern, of a karmic thread still entangled in the soul. We think attraction is a sign of compatibility, but sometimes it is just the soul whispering, "You've been here before." A woman once said, "He makes me cry more than smile, yet I can't walk away. I don't understand why I'm still here." Her teacher answered, "Because it's not the present pulling you in, it's the past echoing through him." In the karmic field, unresolved energy seeks resolution. That's why we're drawn to certain people with an irrational intensity. It's not about who they are now. It's about what their presence activates within us. Your attraction might not be to their beauty or charm. It might be to the lesson they unconsciously carry. This is the silent pull of karma. It feels like love, but often it is longing. Not for the person, but for the closure they represent. From the Buddhist view, we don't just meet people, we re-meet them. Until the cycle is broken, the pain will persist, and it will wear many faces. So when you feel intensely drawn to someone, ask yourself, is this love, or is this recognition? Are you pulled toward growth, or just repeating an emotional loop? Not all who attract you are meant to stay, and not all who stay are meant to soothe you. Some come to awaken, some come to disrupt, some come to return a karmic debt. In this way, attraction is not the beginning of a love story. It is the doorway through which your soul enters its next chapter of healing. And only with awareness can you choose not just who you love, but why. Chapter 4. You don't marry a person. You marry a lesson. When two people marry, the world sees a celebration, vows exchanged, hands held, eyes full of dreams. But beneath the surface, another exchange is taking place. The merging of karma, the meeting of unfinished stories. You don't just marry a person. You marry the emotional imprints they carry. You marry their childhood wounds, their fears of abandonment, their ancestral pain, and they marry yours. In truth, you marry a lesson waiting to be learned. A man once told his monk teacher, "I thought I married for love, but I feel trapped, suffocated." The monk replied, "That's because your soul didn't choose her for love, it chose her for growth." We often confuse comfort for purpose. But karma is not interested in ease, it is interested in evolution. If you are with someone who challenges you, triggers you, brings out the parts of you that are still raw, that may not be a mistake. It may be the lesson taking form. From a karmic perspective, love is not always soft. Sometimes it arrives as fire, burning away illusions we've clung to. The Buddhist view of relationships isn't built around completion. It is built around consciousness. So ask yourself, not, does this person make me happy, but what are they revealing within me? Sometimes a partner appears not to heal, but to break open. And in the breaking, we discover the seed of something more true. In the garden of karma, every relationship is a season. Some grow flowers, others grow thorns, but all offer wisdom if we choose to see. Because in the end, it's not about finding the perfect partner. It's about meeting the perfect mirror for your soul's next unfolding. Chapter 5. The timing of souls. In love, we often ask, is this the right person? But in the karmic unfolding of life, that's only half the question. The other, equally vital question is this the right time? Two souls may be destined to meet, bound by unseen threads of karma. But if they meet too early, before the wounds have softened, before the ego has thinned, the connection becomes turbulent rather than transformative. In Buddhism, timing is sacred. Not only what arrives, but when it arrives determines whether it awakens or entangles. A man once came to a Zen teacher and said, "We love each other, but we fight constantly. Should I leave?" The teacher replied, "Perhaps your hearts arrived at the same place, but your lessons are still on different roads." When one partner is still clinging to identity and the other is beginning to shed it, harmony becomes impossible. Love may exist, but readiness does not. This is the tragedy of premature unions, not because love is lacking, but because awareness is not yet mature. And so, many relationships suffer not from incompatibility, but from misalignment in evolution. The seed was planted, yes, but the soil was not yet ready. Karmically, even the timing of suffering is precise. Some pains arrive early to prepare the soul. Some joys are delayed to test patience. Growth is never rushed in the Dharma of the universe. You may meet someone who feels like your future, but the truth is, they are only your mirror in this moment. If love is forced before both are ready, it burns out. But when timing and readiness align, even silence between souls can feel like home. So trust not only the connection, trust the clockwork of karma. Some love stories are not meant to begin now. They are meant to begin right. Chapter 6. The Echoes of Old Promises. Some relationships carry a strange weight, as if you stepped into them already mid-story, as though something important had happened long before your first meeting. That feeling isn't fantasy. In Buddhist understanding, it's memory, not of the mind, but of the soul. In the vast weave of samsara, vows do not vanish when broken. They echo, and until they are honored, they follow us. You may meet someone and feel instantly close, as if lifetimes of knowing live between your eyes. You may also feel inexplicably drawn to someone who hurts you, and wonder why you can't leave. In both cases, you are not meeting a stranger. You are meeting a continuation. A woman once asked her Dharma teacher, "Why do I love him so much when he causes me so much pain?" The teacher gently replied, "Because you're not just loving him, you're remembering him. Sometimes, the one who abandoned you in a past life returns, not to hurt you again, but to feel what you once felt." Karma, then, becomes balance, not punishment, but understanding in reverse. In Buddhist teaching, all actions leave imprints, seeds of intention that bloom in future moments. A promise made in one lifetime, if broken, doesn't disappear. It becomes a force seeking completion. This is why we sometimes find ourselves in relationships that feel unearned in intensity, loved too fast, betrayed too deeply. The soul is catching up to a story we forgot. But the purpose is never suffering for its own sake. The purpose is remembrance. And when we remember with awareness, not guilt, not attachment, we begin to break the loop. We forgive. We let go. We bow to the lesson and release the need to repeat it. Not all love is born new. Some love is ancient, returning to be rewritten, not as tragedy, but as truth. Chapter 7. Pain as teacher, not punishment. When pain enters a relationship, we often see it as a sign of failure, a crack in the foundation, a reason to retreat. But in the language of karma, pain is rarely a punishment. It is a teacher cloaked in discomfort. Pain is how the soul gets our attention when comfort no longer serves our evolution. In Buddhist psychology, suffering arises not from others, but from our attachment to how they should be. And in marriage, those attachments are tested more deeply than anywhere else. One woman cried, "He changed. He stopped loving me." But the monk asked, "Or did he simply reveal the love you were expecting, not the one you needed?" Relationships don't create wounds. They expose them. Your partner is not the source of your suffering. They are the spark that ignites what has long been buried. A forgotten rejection from childhood, a need to feel seen, a fear of being left behind. Marriage, especially karmic marriage, is fertile ground for these buried emotions to rise, not to punish, but to be released. Pain, then, becomes a sacred signal. It says, "Look here, heal this, let go of that." If received consciously, it leads to awakening. But if resisted, it breeds blame, resentment, and cycles that repeat in different forms, with different faces. True healing doesn't come from avoiding pain, but from sitting with it, breathing through it, and asking, "What is this here to teach me?" When seen through the eyes of Dharma, even heartbreak is grace in disguise. It breaks not the soul, but the shell around it. Because sometimes, the wound is the place where awareness enters. And pain, when met with presence, becomes the path, not away from love, but into its deepest truth. Chapter 8. Gratitude Bonds. Not all karmic ties are born from pain. Some are rooted in quiet, unseen gratitude, debts of kindness carried across lifetimes. Sometimes, the soul doesn't return to repay harm, but to honor help. A man once said, "I don't know why I married her. I don't feel the passion I expected, but I feel responsible, like I owe her something I can't explain." His teacher nodded and replied, "Because your soul remembers what your mind does not." In another life, perhaps she fed him when he was starving, offered shelter in a storm, saved his life with a single gesture of compassion. And now, His presence is the soul's way of bowing in return. These marriages may not be ablaze with passion or drama. They may even appear quiet, unremarkable, or confusing to those seeking romantic ideals. But beneath the stillness lies reverence. The problem arises when that gratitude turns into guilt, when the soul, feeling indebted, forgets its freedom. Buddhist wisdom teaches that even gratitude must be held lightly. If it becomes a chain, binding you to someone out of obligation, it no longer liberates. It imprisons. Gratitude bonds are sacred, but they are not permanent. They are not meant to be endured out of duty. They are meant to be completed with awareness, then released with peace. To honor a debt is noble, but to stay in a relationship that no longer serves either soul out of fear of letting go, that is attachment disguised as virtue. Completion doesn't always mean leaving, but it does mean seeing clearly. Have I repaid what I came to repay? When the answer is yes, the soul is free, not from love, but from the karma behind it. And in that freedom, the heart no longer serves a past. It begins to serve the present. Chapter 9. The Dharma Marriage. There exists a rare kind of union, not driven by desire, not born of emotional need, but rooted in shared awakening. A marriage not for fulfillment, but for purpose. This is the Dharma marriage. In these rare but profound bonds, two souls come together not to complete each other, but to serve something beyond themselves. Their love is not possessive, it is devotional. Their connection does not revolve around what they can receive, but what they can offer the world together. A Zen teacher once said, "When two awakened beings join hands, the universe bows." In Dharma marriages, conflict still arises, but it is not chaos. It is conscious. Challenges are met not with blame, but with mindfulness. The relationship becomes a space of mutual growth, not emotional dependency. These partners are mirrors, yes, but they reflect the light, not just the shadows. They may meditate together, teach together, raise children in stillness, build a life that ripples with meaning far beyond their home. And while passion may still live between them, it is no longer a fire that consumes. It is a flame that illuminates. In Buddhism, Dharma is the path of truth, the alignment with right purpose. When a marriage is in Dharma, it doesn't just nourish the two, it nourishes the collective. These unions often feel quiet, even invisible to the world. But inside, there is a deep steadiness, like a mountain unmoved by storm. They don't chase the highs. They don't fear the lows. They simply walk the path together, hand in hand, step by step, with no need to be completed, because both have already come home to themselves. And from that inner wholeness, love becomes not a destination, but a way of walking, a shared vow, a sacred path, a marriage that serves the Dharma, not just desire. Chapter 10. Ending the cycle with compassion. Not all karmic bonds are meant to last a lifetime. Some arrive only to complete a chapter, to offer one final lesson before dissolving like mist in the morning sun. Yet we often hold on, not to love, but to the idea of love, to the hope that endurance is the same as devotion. But Buddhism teaches us that clinging is not loyalty. It is attachment wearing a noble mask. A woman once wept before her teacher and said, "I stayed through the silence, the distance, the emptiness." Was that spiritual? Was that strong? The teacher placed a lotus in her hand and whispered, "Your marriage was the mud. Your healing is the bloom." In the karmic view, staying beyond the point of growth does not bring enlightenment. It brings stagnation. When the lesson is complete, continuing the relationship may only deepen the suffering, not dissolve it. To end a karmic relationship is not to reject the person, it is to release the pattern. Compassion is not always staying. Sometimes it is walking away with grace, saying, "Thank you for the mirror. Thank you for the fire. But I no longer need to burn to feel alive." When you leave with presence, without bitterness, without blame, you do something sacred. You tell karma the lesson has been received. And in that moment, the wheel of repetition begins to slow. Letting go does not mean failure. It means honoring the impermanence of all things. It means choosing freedom over familiarity. It means loving yourself enough to walk forward, alone, but not lost. Because sometimes, the most profound act of love is not holding on. It is bowing, blessing the bond, and setting both souls free. Chapter 11. You don't marry a body. You marry a history. When you say, "I do," you are not only embracing the person standing before you, you are stepping into a temple built from every moment they have lived before that day. You marry not just their smile, their voice, their presence in the now. You marry their memories, their childhood wounds, their unspoken fears, their karmic echoes, and they marry yours. Marriage is not two blank slates beginning anew. It is two soul histories intertwining, two invisible libraries opening and merging their pages. A woman once said, "He never sees me. He only criticizes." Her teacher asked, "Did you feel unseen before you met him?" She nodded. The teacher replied, "Then he is not the cause. He is the reflection." In Buddhist psychology, every unresolved belief becomes a lens, projecting outward until it finds a screen. And often, that screen is the one we love most. The partner becomes the mirror of our deepest self-perceptions, our worth, our shame, our longing. You may think you're reacting to them, but you're really reacting to what they awaken within you. And unless both souls are willing to sit with the discomfort of those revelations, the relationship becomes not a sanctuary, but a battleground of unhealed pain. You don't marry just their presence. You marry the ghosts they carry, their inner child, their unmet needs, their unprocessed stories, and they meet yours. So if you find yourself saying, "They've changed," or "They hurt me," pause. Look inward. Ask, what within me is being shown? Because in karmic marriage, the work is rarely about changing the other. It is about facing the parts of ourselves they illuminate, and healing not just as partners, but as two histories, learning how to write a new chapter in conscious ink. Chapter 12, The Mirror of Inner Worth. Marriage reflects many things: love, fear, patterns. But perhaps its most revealing mirror is self-worth. What you tolerate in a relationship often reveals not what the other person thinks of you, but what you think of yourself. A man once said, "She never truly appreciates me. No matter what I do, it's not enough." The monk simply asked, "Were you already trying to prove your worth before she entered your life?" He paused, then nodded. The truth stung, not because it was cruel, but because it was familiar. This is the quiet karma of self-image. We think we're marrying someone else, but much of the time, we are marrying the reflection of how we secretly feel about ourselves. Buddhism teaches that perception arises from the mind. If the mind is colored by doubt, even love feels like rejection. If the heart carries wounds, even kindness feels suspicious. When your inner belief says, "I'm not enough," your partner may unconsciously validate that belief until you challenge it from within. In karmic partnerships, your partner becomes a spiritual mirror, not to flatter, but to clarify. The sharper the reflection, the deeper the invitation to heal. And so, the question is not always, why are they treating me this way? But why do I continue to accept it? You can't control the image in the mirror, but you can cleanse the face that stands before it. The more you anchor in your intrinsic worth, the more your relationships shift, either through transformation or through release. Because when you no longer need someone to validate your value, you begin to love not from lack, but from wholeness. And the mirror of marriage stops distorting. It begins to reflect not your wounds, but your awakening. Chapter 13, Forgiveness as Liberation. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. We see it as something we give to the other, as if we are setting them free. But in truth, forgiveness is how we unchain ourselves from lifetimes of inner bondage. A woman once whispered through tears, "He hurt me, and I can't forget." Her teacher replied, "Then he still lives inside you, not as a person, but as a prison." In Buddhist practice, karma does not cling to action alone, it clings to reaction. When we hold on to resentment, we keep the karmic thread alive. We feed it, we water it. But when we forgive, not out of weakness, but from awareness, we cut the thread. We break the cycle. Forgiveness does not mean returning to pain. It does not mean denying harm. It means acknowledging that the lesson has been learned and suffering is no longer necessary. It is saying, "What you did hurt me, but I refuse to let it define me." It is saying, the karma is complete. Sometimes, forgiveness is quiet. It happens in meditation, in a letter never sent, in a deep breath where anger used to live. Sometimes, it is not for a person at all, but for yourself, for the version of you who didn't know better, who stayed too long, who loved blindly. And in that act of release, something ancient dissolves. You are no longer carrying the past. You are honoring it, then setting it down. Forgiveness is the final rite in karmic marriage. It is the gesture that closes the loop, not with bitterness, but with grace. Because the soul that forgives is not saying, I forget. It is saying, I'm ready to be free. And from that freedom, the next chapter doesn't begin with pain, it begins with peace. If you've made it this far, then you've already taken a courageous step, not just into knowledge, but into self-awareness. What we explored today isn't just about marriage. It's about mirrors, about karma, about the unseen threads that bind hearts long before vows are spoken. You may now see your partner or your past with new eyes. And perhaps most importantly, you may see yourself. Remember, not all unions are meant to last, but all have a message. And if received consciously, that message can end lifetimes of repetition. If something in this video touched you, offered clarity, or invited reflection, I kindly ask you to like this video, subscribe to Stillness Unfolded, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's turn this into a space of shared wisdom and authentic growth. There's much more to come. More stories, more insight, more stillness unfolding. Until then, be kind to yourself, be mindful of your patterns, and above all, walk gently with the truth that love is not about possession. It is about presence. Thank you for watching.